Hey guys, today's lecture we're going to focus on the Texas bureaucracy. So, a bureaucracy, this is a system of non-elected officials which administer government policies and programs. Now, the bureaucracy can occur at the federal level, they can occur at the state level. When we think of bureaucracy, when we hear the term bureaucracy, understand that this is the agency, the governmental agency. Bureaucrats are the people who work for these agencies. They're the ones who actually implement the rules, the regulations, the policies, the procedures. When we think of bureaucracies, when we think of bureaucrats, we tend to have a negative reaction. Why? Well, if you look at this definition of bureaucracy, there's one word in there that really seems to set us off. And that word would be non-elected. The system of non-elected officials administering government policies and programs. Why do we not like the word non-elected? Why does the term non-elected set us off? Well, who gave these people power? Who gave these people authority over us? We didn't do it. We didn't elect them. We didn't hire them. So who gave these people this power? And that is what sets us off. That is why we don't like bureaucracy. We don't like bureaucrats. But do we need bureaucracy? Do we need these agencies? There's about 220 entities which create the Texas bureaucracy, which allow Texas government to operate it. So, yes, we need these bureaucracies, but unfortunately, these bureaucracies are often working at not necessarily cross purposes, but they are also competing for the same thing. They're competing for the same resources. So in some ways, in some instances, these agencies are actually in competition with one another. 220 bureaucracies. Which person is in charge? Which person in Texas government oversees all 220 bureaucracies, all 220 agencies? Well, there's bad news. There is not one individual that oversees these agencies. There is not one person that these agencies report to, and this person can say, you're doing a good job, you're not doing a good job. If we don't have one person in charge, how do they operate? Who is in charge? For the most part, we have something called policy makers. Now, understand the difference here, and this is a big, important difference. Policy makers, they decide what is going to be done. These policy makers, they are the idea people. The bureaucrats, the actual people working for the agency or the bureaucracy, they actually implement the decision in what they hope is the best way possible. So they actually put the idea into motion. They take the idea and they make it work. So if we're talking about policymakers, how do we get them? A couple of different options, a couple of different ways. The first, policymakers can be elected. A number of our elected executive officials are these policymakers. If you think back to when I did the executive branch, the governor, I told you that numerous people made up the executive branch, but I was only going to talk about the governor because we're going to talk about the rest of these people at a later time. That time is here. Now we're going to talk about the rest of them. First one, the Attorney General. The Attorney General, often referred to as simply the AG, the Attorney General, the AG. The Attorney General is the lawyer for all officials, boards, and agencies in state government. This office can employ, or does employ, more than 4,150 people. Duties include assisting in child support enforcement, antitrust actions, Medicaid fraud investigations, crime victim compensation, running the Crime Victims Compensation Fund, consumer protection, and various other activities. The Attorney General is important for two reasons. The first is because the Attorney General can issue what is called an Attorney General's opinion. An Attorney General's opinion is an interpretation of the Constitution, an interpretation of statutory laws, administrative laws. The Attorney General's opinion is going to tell us, the state, the elected officials, whether or not an action is constitutional or not. The second reason the AG is important is because they represent the state and its government in both civil and criminal litigation. So they are attorneys, they do represent the state when we are sued, when we are suing. The next one, the Controller of Public Accounts. This position is in charge of money for the state. Their main job is they are the chief tax collector and chief pre-audit accounting officer for Texas. The Controller of Public Accounts has to certify the state's approximate biannual revenue. Now, this position is very important to Texas government, to the Texas legislature. In Texas, we have a balanced budget amendment. What's a balanced budget? It simply means we cannot spend more than we take in. We can spend less than we take in, but we can't spend more. Nobody gives Texas a credit card. Visa does not give us a credit card for us to put our bills on. We have to pay cash. Well, remember, the legislature only meets for 140 days for every 2 years. So they are creating a budget for the next 2 fiscal years for after their meeting. Well, if they have to keep a balanced budget, they can't spend more money than they take in. How do they know how much money they have to spend? This is a controller. They come in and they say, this is my estimate. This is how much money I believe Texas is going to bring in taxes, leases, whatever. This is how much money you have to spend, and the state, the legislature, cannot spend more than that. Commissioner of the General Land Office. The principal duties of this office are managing and collecting rentals and leases for state-owned lands, awarding leases for exploration and production on state lands, and leasing mineral rights in the state's riverbeds and tidelands. So this office is actually bringing in money from leasing state lands to private companies and allowing them to explore for oil, gas, gravel, whatever. And if discovered, they get to produce. They get to get this material, these natural resources, out of the ground. They are leasing the land for production use also. Now, this particular position, this particular title or job, Commissioner of the General Land Office, this position is the oldest, most continuously elected position in Texas history. So that's kind of neat. The Commissioner of Agriculture. The Commissioner of Agriculture heads up the Department of Agriculture. The department is responsible for the administration of all laws, as well as research, educational, and regulatory activities relating to agriculture. Do we care about agriculture? The Department of Agriculture, the Commissioner of Agriculture? Probably not. A lot of it's going to depend on where you live. What are some of the things they take care of, though? What are some of the things they oversee? They will oversee aquaculture, growing things in water, egg quality, fuel quality, pesticides, seed quality, weights and measures. They actually do a number of things. They oversee a number of things that do affect our daily lives. We don't think about it, but this department is important to us. The last one under elected is the Lieutenant Governor. The Lieutenant Governor is the ex officio chair. I told you a couple of weeks ago, or a couple of lectures ago, that you are going to need to know the term ex officio. You saw it once. I told you were going to see it again. Do you remember what it means? No, probably not. Ex officio, because of this, I am that. We talked about the Justice of the Peace, the JP, being the ex officio notary. The Lieutenant Governor is the ex officio chair of the Legislative Budget Board, the Legislative Council, the Legislative Audit Board. So ex officio chair, because he or she is the Lieutenant Governor, that automatically makes them the chair, the head of the Legislative Budget Board, the Legislative Council, the Legislative Audit Board. Now, these positions wrap up the elected policymakers. Also, these positions wrap up the elected portion of the plural executive, the elected portion of the executive branch. So for the executive branch, plural executive, we're talking governor, then attorney general, controller, commissioner of general land office, commissioner of agriculture, and the lieutenant governor. So, if this wraps up the policymakers that are elected, are there more? Yes, there are. How do they get their jobs? Well, if these are elected, the others are going to be appointed. Appointed by the governor, approved by the Senate. Remember, that's part of the catch. The first one, Secretary of State. Now, Secretary of State is appointed by the governor. This is the last position in the executive branch. So that plural executive, those powers spread out, the governor, the previous slide, all those elected officials, then the Secretary of State. These make up the plural executive. The Secretary of State is the only appointed member of the plural executive. The Secretary of State, their main job is to serve as the chief election officer for Texas. This means that they administer election laws, they maintain voter registration records, and they receive election results. They also keep official, business, and commercial records that are filed with the state. So that's our Secretary of State. The next appointed position, the Adjutant General. This is the state's top-ranking military official. They have administrative jurisdiction over the Texas National Guard. They have administrative jurisdiction over the Texas State Guard. The Health and Human Services Commissioner. This commissioner heads the consolidated Texas Health and Human Services system. What I mean by this consolidated system, the Health and Human Services system is a super agency. They manage 4 major health and welfare departments. I have a link if you want to look at what they do. But that position is also appointed. The last, the Insurance Commissioner. The commissioner oversees the Department of Insurance. Their job is to regulate the Texas insurance industry. What I mean by this is if an insurance company wants to raise their rates on Texans, they have to go through the insurance commissioner. They have to go through the department. They have to ask for permission. Does the commissioner ever say no? Actually, yes, sometimes they tell these companies, no, you did not, you present a compelling reason that you need to raise rates. Okay, you only made $3 million last year. Yes, you made a $3 million profit. That is enough. You don't need to raise rates on Texans to make more. So, is this position important to us? Actually, it is. They do have a lot to do with how much we're paying for home insurance, auto insurance, that kind of thing. I've talked about individuals, elected policymakers. I've talked about appointed policymakers. Now I want to talk about a couple of boards and commissions. The first is the Texas Railroad Commission. We talked about them in that first section when we talked about oil being a financial driver. We talked about the oil driving the economy for a while. The Texas Railroad Commission regulates gas utilities, oil and gas pipelines, oil and gas drilling and pumping, and finally intra-state railroad transportation. Intrastate means inside the state of Texas. This commission, neat little fact, this commission was established in 1891. So it's almost 120 years old. It is the state's oldest regulatory agency. The Texas Education Agency. This agency oversees and regulates the Texas public school system. They will help administer national and state education law. Plus, they will help administer the State Board of Education rules and regulations. Now, this agency has many divisions, many departments, whatever you want to call it. Just to give you an idea of the responsibilities that the Texas Education Agency, or the TEA, has. Some of these departments, some of these divisions: accountability research, accreditation, adult and community education, charter school administration, curriculum, dropout prevention. I just wanted to tell you a few of these so you understand the broad responsibilities some of these bureaucracies, some of these agencies have. The last, ex officio boards. Ex officio boards are boards who have members who are automatically assigned due to their election, due to their holding of another position. We just talked about the lieutenant governor was the ex officio head of those boards. These ex officio boards, are they good or bad? It can be both. For example, there's a board out there called the Texas Bond Review Board. Now, their job is to approve all bonds and other long-term debts of the state agencies of the universities. This is an ex officio board. It is made up, the board members are made up of the governor, the lieutenant governor, the Speaker of the House, and the controller. Why is it good? It's good because we, you and I, don't have to vote for these positions. We don't have to go and do more research, which, let's be honest, we're not going to do anyway. So it takes the responsibility out of our hands. So that's good. But it's bad. Look at this board. They're talking about examining long-term debt. Out of the governor, the lieutenant governor, the speaker, the controller, how many of those would you trust to have a financial background? Out of what you know their jobs are? Think about what I just told you about the controller. That is the only one that we can really trust to have a financial background, to know and be able to understand the long-term ramifications. Do you want 4 people voting on long-term debt when 3 of them may have no idea what they're doing? This could be bad. So, could be good, could be bad. That's the policymakers. That wraps up that section. What I want to talk about right now is recognizing a bureaucracy. How can we tell if we're dealing with a bureaucracy? How can we tell if we're dealing with a government agency? There are characteristics we can look for which will help tell us. The first, size. Most bureaucracies are large in nature. They have to be. There are so many issues that a bureaucracy has to oversee that they need many people to specialize in certain areas. Think about all those divisions or departments I told you that the TEA, the Texas Education Agency, had. How many people did I say that the Attorney General's office employs? That's right, over 4,000 people. 4,150 people is actually what I said. So when we see these sides, these various responsibilities, this is an indication that what we are looking at is a bureaucracy. So bigger is better. Does that mean there's a minimum size? No, that's not what it means at all. You can have a 5-person office, and that's a bureaucracy also. Excuse me, I am so sorry. But there is no minimum size, there is no maximum size. Next thing we're going to look at, neutrality. Neutrality can mean two things. There's two definitions or two types of neutrality we are looking for. The first is neutrality in application. Neutrality in how these goods or services are being administered. Is it administered fairly to everybody? If two people come in, they both apply for benefits, they both qualify for benefits, then they should both receive benefits. That is neutrality in this administration, or neutrality in benefits, whatever you call it. Whoever applies and qualifies for the benefits receives. We don't pick and choose between those who qualify. Everybody gets it. The second type of neutrality is neutrality in hiring. And what this means is, how does the organization decide who it is going to employ? Do you have to know somebody? Do you have to do a favor for somebody to get hired? Or does everybody have an equal shot at it? Now, what's the way it should be? The way it should be is that everybody has an equal chance to get hired. Well, that's not the way it used to be. It used to be that our government officials would use these agencies and practice a form of patronage, or it could be called the spoil system. Patronage or the spoil system, our elected officials will reward their political supporters with these agency jobs, with these government jobs. What's the problem? Well, what happens if they give a supporter a government job and the supporter isn't qualified for the job? Well, now we have issues. To get away from this, what we see is the creation of something called the civil service or the merit system. The civil service or the merit system, in this type of system, potential employees are tested, and this is used as a measure to begin a hiring process. So what happens is, you're going to apply for a job. You go in, you take this civil service or this merit test. The test can be oral, it can be written. A lot of private companies do this today. We just call it an aptitude test instead. But you have to score on a certain level. You have to reach a certain score on this test to move on. If you are able to reach this score, you are proving that you have a level of competence. You are proving that you can do the job. Who has to take this test? Everybody. Everybody who applies. What happens if you don't meet that level of competence? You don't move on. your job seeking with them is over. Hierarchy. Hierarchy is formal authority and control is exercised at successive levels from the top to the bottom. Formal authority and control exercised at successive levels from the top to the bottom. What I am trying to describe here is a chain of command or an organizational chart. It tells us who is in what position, what authority they have over the organization. If we are talking about schools, colleges, universities, we could say, okay, the top person in our hierarchy, our chain of command, our organizational chart is the president. Under the president, we're going to have the vice presidents. Under the vice presidents, we're going to have the deans. Under the deans, we're going to have the assistant deans. Under the assistant deans, we're going to have the department heads. Under the department heads, we may have the assistant department heads. Then, finally, bottom of the pyramid, we're going to have faculty and staff. So that would be a hierarchy, a chain of command, an organizational chart. Expertise. Expertise is simply having an understanding of your job and how this decision affects others. Having an understanding of your job and having an understanding how your decision is going to affect others. Now, this is one definition of expertise. I am getting ready to give you another one in a second. We've talked about bureaucracies. We understand people don't like them because they're big, they're unelected. And there's a question. Should we privatize bureaucracies? Privatization, yay or nay? This is going to be a personal opinion. I say that because there are pros and cons to each side. If an agency, if a government privatizes an agency, they hire somebody else to take over to run this. Well, the government no longer has to pay all of these people. We don't have to provide benefits for all of these people. We don't have to provide building space for all of these people. Depending on what the job is, we might not have to provide a fleet of cars, maintenance, so mechanics, gas, auto insurance, all of this. It might be cheaper to pay somebody else to do it, to hire a private company to do it. But on the other hand, if we hire a private company to do it, can we look over their shoulder? Can we micromanage? Can we make sure that they are doing the things the way that we, the government, want them to? No, we can't. So this is a double-edged sword. There's good things from privatization. There's bad things from privatization. The bureaucracy and public policy. I want to make sure before we go any further that y'all understand the difference between policy makers and bureaucrats, bureaucracies. Policy makers are the idea people. Bureaucrats are actually the ones who are going to implement this. Make sure you understand this. There's something out there called clientele interest groups. Clientele interest groups are the groups most concerned with the laws, the policies that are being administered by the government agency, that are being administered by the government bureaucracy. Why would these groups be concerned about laws and policies and how they're being administered? Well, that's easy. It's because it affects these clientele interest groups. The agency is implementing these ideas, is going to put forth the policies and procedures that the clientele interest group has to follow. What we see, agencies, they want power. They want prestige. I was saying they want more power. They want more prestige. One of the ways that they can get this is to have powerful, influential clientele groups. They're going to want to have these clientele groups that donate a lot of money to our elected officials, so that if they tell the elected officials what they want, the elected officials are going to create laws, give it to these agencies, but they're also going to give these agencies more funding. I mean, think of it this way. If you're an agency, do you want to serve a group? Do you want a clientele interest group that is oil and gas companies? Or do you want to serve an interest group that is some sort of social program? You want to serve the interest group that's oil and gas. Why? Because your group has more influence with the legislatures, with the elected officials, so therefore you as an agency are going to have more influence. Can the legislature and their presiding officers help agency power grow? The answer is yes. One of the ways this can occur is that when the legislature creates new laws or when they fund agencies, they increase the appropriations. They increase the funding for your agency. This is going to make you more powerful. Another way they can do it is to give you more responsibilities, to give you more jobs. This is an indication that you are becoming more powerful. So yes, the legislature and their presiding officers help bureaucratic power. Now, I have a question for you, and you should know this. Who are the presiding officers? You should be able to answer that question. The governor. Now, I understand, and I've been telling you, Texas has a plural executive. The governor shares many powers with other elected officials, so the position of governor is actually very weak. However, he can influence the legislature in regards to appropriations. He can influence, he can aid, or he can hinder these bureaucracies, these agencies, when it comes to money. How can the governor do that? Remember, the governor has the power of the line item veto. So if he or she does not like your agency, they can veto your funding. If you're an agency and you don't have money, how successful are you going to be? Not at all. So you need to make everybody happy. What does a bureaucracy need to get by? Hopefully survive, hopefully thrive. The first thing they need, public support. What happens if the public thinks a bureaucracy is not doing a good job? We call our elected officials, our state legislators, and say, what exactly is this agency doing? And our state officials say, that's a good question. What exactly are they doing? Let me check and I'll look into it and I'll get back to you. And our state officials discover that the agencies aren't doing anything. We don't like them. We don't need them. What's going to happen to the agency? It's going to be gone. So they do need public support to survive, to thrive. The agency as a whole, and here's that second definition, expertise. What we are talking about is the agency needs people. They need bureaucrats who can take an idea and its conception. The policymakers can come up and say, okay, this is the end game. This is what I want. We need these people with expertise that can take this idea, that they can work it, they can promote it, they can put it into words, they can put it into rules and regulations and actually enact these ideas. That is expertise. Last thing they need is the ability to gather information. These agencies need to be able to gather information to determine what laws are needed, or even what laws are wanted. Then they can pass this information on to the legislators or to other elected or appointed officials. Why would this information be important to our legislators? It tells them what we want. It gives them a direction of, it lets them know what we expect, what we want them to do. Administration of the law. When legislators write laws, or when these policy makers come up with ideas, do you think they're clear and concise, or are they jumbled? Well, most of the time, these laws are very jumbled. They're just general ideas. The legislators, the policymakers, have a general idea of what this law is supposed to do, but they really and truly have no idea how to implement it. So this leads us to administrative review. Administrative review is an administrator, a bureaucrat, will study the law, they will interpret the law. They say, I think this is what the policymaker, the elected officials, the legislature wants. I think this is what they mean. So they're doing this interpretation so that they can write that they can write the rules, they can create the rules, the regulations to implement this law, to put it into effect. All laws go through administrative review. Once we go through administrative review, we get that idea, we think this is what they want. We then go through administrative law. Administrative law is simply the rules, the regulations written by administrators to actually administer this law, to actually put this law into effect. The effectiveness of a law is often determined by how many by how the administrative law is written. A good effective law has good effective administrative law. Accountability. I told you at the beginning of this lecture that there is no one individual that oversees all of these agencies, that that they are accountable to, that has responsibility for them. But I do want to talk about some accountabilities, some different types. The first is elective accountability. Elective accountability is the obligation of elected officials to be directly answerable to the voters for their action. So this would require the Lieutenant Governor, the Comptroller, the Commissioner of the General Land Office, the Agricultural Commissioner, to be directly responsible or be directly answerable to us. And this sounds great. But the problem is, most people don't know which elected official is responsible for which bureaucracy. We don't know which elected official is responsible for which agency. So does this work? No, it doesn't. Well, let's look at legislative accountability. Yes, the legislature attempts to have some accountability of bureaucracy. They get to audit these agencies. They provide money appropriations for these agencies. They have oversight of these agencies. But we have a couple of issues here. First off, do they have time? 220 agencies, 140 days every 2 years. Does the legislature have time to closely monitor, to closely watch all these agencies? The answer is no, they don't. The second catch is, remember, the governor gets to appoint the agency head. So the legislature really has no choice in that matter. They either approve or disapprove, but they can't put the person in there that they would like. So does this work? No. Well, what about that accountability to the chief executive? The accountability to the governor? Well, no. Flat out, no. This isn't going to work. We have the plural executive, Lieutenant Governor, Attorney General, Comptroller, the Commissioner of the General Land Office, the Ag Commissioner. These are all positions that are elected. The governor cannot dictate to them what they're going to do. The governor's not their boss. They didn't hire him. They can't fire him. So, no, this isn't going to work either. All of these are bad. What we end up having is something called bureaucratic accountability. In all reality, the administrator, the agency, is accountable to the interest group, that clientele group that benefits from the service programs that the agencies, that the administrator provides. Is this good? No. What's wrong with this one? Well, what happens as an agency, we want to get good reports. We want to get good reviews. So we want to do everything that we can for our clientele interest groups. But what happens if, I mentioned this oil and gas clientele interest group earlier. What happens if we tell them no? Do you like being told no? They don't either. So if we tell them no, we can't do that, or no, you can't have that, the clientele interest group turns around, goes to the legislature and says, that agency isn't giving us what we want. They are not doing their job. Then the legislature punishes us, the agency, by taking away some of our power, our authority, our job requirements, our funding. We get punished. So bureaucratic accountability is what we have. It's the best out of a totally awful situation. how can we make administrators accountable to the public? How can we make these bureaucrats accountable to us? Few different ways. The first, we have something called open meeting laws. Open meeting laws, these are laws that require all meetings of government bodies that make decisions concerning the public interest be open to public scrutiny. By law, they have to tell us when and where they're meeting, what time, and we, the public, can go in and watch. Now, there are some exceptions to these open meetings laws. These agencies will go into a private session if they're going to discuss personnel matters, land acquisition, litigation matters. But these are the only three they can discuss in a closed session. Everything else has to be an open session, has to be open to the public for us to see. The next, open records laws. These are laws that require most records kept by government to be open for the examination of the parties involved. This means that if for whatever reason we cannot make a meeting, somebody at that meeting is supposed to be taking minutes. Minutes are what are called notes. Notes are called minutes. They're taking minutes of the meeting. So at a later date, anybody can file an open records request, and the media loves to file open records requests. And we can go back and see what was debated, what was discussed. Was it discussed? How much discussion was there? That kind of thing. The third one, whistleblowers. We have whistleblower laws that are supposed to protect government employees who expose corruption, incompetence, criminal acts by other governmental employees. These whistleblower laws, in theory, protect employees from retaliation if we report a grievance, if we report a violation. So what this is supposed to do is say the government cannot punish us, the agency cannot punish us for reporting a violation. Sounds good. Legally they can't do it. Does it work that way? Remember we talked about Texas being an at-will state? They can fire you for any reason. Today you report a violation. Tomorrow the agency finds out it was you who reported it, call you in, and they say, I'm sorry, the quality of your work is just not up to our standards. You're fired. Well, I've gotten great reviews the last 7 years. I'm sorry, nope, you're out. Now, are they firing you because the quality of your work has declined? Probably not. So this is the problem. We do have these whistleblower laws, but they're really hard to enforce. They're hard to prove. The last thing I want to talk about is a position called the Ombudsman. This is an official who hears complaints from employees, from citizens, concerning government administrators, concerning policy administration. Now, the Ombudsman, they have the power to bring these complaints to the policymakers, to the higher-ups. Can they make the agencies change their ways? No. But this is like a middleman. You just make your complaint, and the Ombudsman's position makes your complaint known to the proper authorities. Last thing I want to say. Governor Ann Richards loved this idea. She loved this position of the ombudsman. She liked it so much, she actually put a position in her administration. In her government administration, in her government office, she created a position for an ombudsman. She thought it was really, really good.